Well, hey, yeah, I always drive around with my bucket all the way up in the air. I mean, who doesn't, really? But hey, I wanted to catch up with you. You know, I did that whole long video about how I wanted to get back in the shop and start making some videos on engines and things like that. Yeah, so like a week after that, my work decided that I needed to go to New York for a week. So you know what I told them? You know what? Work? I said, this is what I said. I said, yes, I will go, because I have bills to pay and I need my job. So I made the best of it, and while I was up there, I found me a new toy. Something kind of nice, not super rare or anything like that, just a nice engine. I know, shocker. You know, the cool thing about Facebook Marketplace is you can change your location and like search where you're at. Well, I had a whole week to find something. So got up there Sunday, and lo and behold, by Thursday, I was able to find me an engine. Made the deal and brought her home. So without further ado, let me show you my purchase. Ta-da! Well, before we get too far into this thing, I noticed after I took the straps off of it, it looks like this thing's got some nice paint underneath of it. So I'm going to take us over to the concrete and pressure wash it off, and then we'll get it over to the shop and I'll explain what this thing is, and we're going to try to get it running. I don't think it'll take much. It looks like it'll probably just fire right up, but there's some things I usually look at before I start an engine I want to share with you, and some things for you to think of on your purchases. So I'm going to pressure wash it, maybe bring some of that paint back out, and then we're going to get it running. So. So yesterday is now today. Got the engine in the shop. She's all nice and pretty now. A lot of that grease and grime came off and revealed some nice paint. So that makes me happy. Also, cleaning the grease and grime off, I've been able to see a little repair up here so far, and that's the only thing I have seen, thankfully. But whoever did the repair did a nice job. It's on this little rocker arm stand. And since we're on the topic of repairs, I want to go, and like I've been preaching in other videos, before you ever turn an engine over, even when it looks as good as this, there's some things you need to look at before you cost yourself more money by turning it over and breaking something. So instead of me standing here and talking about what I'm going to do, we're just going to hop into it and do it. So let's get into it. So I guess we'll start out with what this is. This is a air-cooled horse and 3/4 United engine. And fun fact, the first engine that I did on this channel was a 3 to 4 horse Type A United, which was a hopper cooled, but this is also a Type A, just a smaller version and air cooled of that same engine. So pretty much the same engine as far as how it works, other than it's got fins like a Briggs & Stratton or a Honda engine would today. Little fan for cooling over here that's belt driven, which this isn't correct. This would have had a different mount on the fan, and it would just been a leather belt around the flywheel to power that, but that works. That's actually a Gates serpentine belt for a car, but hey, guy made do with what he had. I mentioned when you first buy an engine, you don't immediately want to just grab a hold of flywheels. Even though this thing looks really good, you don't want to immediately grab a hold of flywheels and start cranking things over. The reason for that is your valves could be stuck, the igniter could be stuck, something over here could be stuck, and usually when things are stuck and you get the flywheels just turning and all that leverage in them flywheels, you break things. So, as I've said in the past, don't be dumb and do a little checklist. Usually the first thing I like to do is make sure the valves are free, check the igniter, make sure it's free, because once you start spinning them, this push rod's going to go forward, and you have the potential to break the igniter, break this trip, break the rocker arm. This stuff's all cast iron and it is somewhat brittle. So yeah, check that stuff on your engine. Anything that moves, go through, make sure this stuff's loose, you know, all the way back in here. These are your governor weights. You want to make sure those are loose. This one here has a little slip collar on it, which this isn't as important, but hey, since we're checking things, we're going to look at this. Something else I like to do, see if this thing's got any play in it. This engine's been rebuilt, so I'm assuming probably not, but play in your bearings. These are the main caps, and then the connecting rod is right there. To check to see if your bearings are loose, you just grab a hold of the end of the shaft or just grab the flywheel, you know, like up here, and try lifting up on it. This one here is tight, which I kind of expect it to be. And since we've checked all of our linkages, I'm going to spin this and check the connecting rod. It's pretty tight. And check the wrist pin. And it is also tight. So all in all, I expect this engine to be in pretty decent shape since it's got a nice paint job on it, which, let me tell you, that isn't always the case. But this one here, somebody's took some time and went through it. So, moral of the story, before you grab a hold of the flywheels and start spinning her over, do your due diligence and make sure something else isn't stuck. It's not hard for these valves to get stuck. It's a metal on metal valve stem just through the cast iron head. You know, very little clearance on that. It doesn't take much rust for that to get stuck. And even an engine that could be painted up, that could still be stuck. And then you end up with a broken rocker arm or something along them lines. Now, I did mention, I did see repair on this. And I probably wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't pressure washed it. Right there, you can see the brazing on this. This has been broke at one point, but whoever brazed this did a really good job. Feathered it in, made it look right. So, looks like a good job and really doesn't detract from the value. Something else I've seen, this here is not right. Whoever put the gas tank in, just used some copper plumbing, and this is the fill for the gas tank right there, and it definitely smells like varnish in there. This engine has obviously been sitting somewhere for a while, and if you ever smelt varnish gas, it has its own odor. So we have that. Another thing down here, I can tell this mixer is a little bit gummy, again from the gas sitting in it. So we may have some issues with that when we go to start it. It's got some electrical on it already, up to the igniter, and then over here is a ground that isn't really hooked up all that well. This engine was on a cart. Nah, heck with it. This engine was on a cart before I bought it, and the guy wanted the cart and was selling the engine. So this wiring, and I didn't notice it until I was dragging it around on the concrete. This wiring, and I don't know why, goes... Hi, puppy. Goes through, down, and then underneath, and I have drug it, and I'm sure that I've broken the wire, so I'm just going to use some gator clips like I normally do in my own coil to get this thing running. I do have, or it does have a coil back in here. It's wired up. I'm not going to mess with it. It's just a lot easier for me to use some gator clips on the igniter, and this thing should fire right up. So what I'm going to do next is start going through this thing and just oiling everything up, using a bit of penetrating oil to get some things loosened up and moving freer. And I also did notice, let's see if you can hear it through the exhaust. Don't know if you could, but it's hissing. That means that the exhaust valve is not seating all the way. So I'm going to spray some penetrating oil in here and let it go in around the exhaust valve on the inside and try to get this thing to where that valve's seating again without having to pull the head off of it. Sometimes you can get away with that by putting some penetrating oil in, letting it go in, soak around, and loosen up whatever carbon's in there. And then you can grab a hold of the valve and spin it and kind of tap it like that, and you'll usually break free and seat back up instead of having to pull the head off and go that route. So I'm going to do that and start spraying everything down, and then once we do all that, and I should be able to get it running. So here we go. Well, it's still blowing by the exhaust valve. It'll run as it is, and even with it running, it may get some heat in that exhaust valve and seat itself back up. But like I said, I don't want to pull the head off if I don't have to. So I'm going to put the exhaust back on it and continue forth with trying to get this thing going. Everything's sprayed down. I'm going to get my oil can and oil everything. We're going to put some gas in it, see if the mixer, which is the essentially the carburetor, will suck fuel up in, and then I'll get a battery and a coil. We'll get the ignition, which is this here, hooked up. I'll strap this thing down to the cart and see if we can get it started. Something I realized I didn't mention, when you're going to start an engine for the first time, you can save yourself a lot of headache by checking just ahead of time to make sure this thing's in time. These need to fire normally about 5 degrees before top dead center. On this one, the way you check is, since you can see the crank, top dead center is when the piston's all the way forward. So we want the crank to be just 5 degrees before top dead center, and this magneto, or the igniter on this to trip like that from the strip finger. Easy way to do it is just spin it over and take it up to where it's going to trip, which is right there. And we're about top dead center on the ignition. It'll run there. It might be a smidgen before top dead center, but just looking at it, it looks like it's maybe top dead center. It'll run. We'll see how it runs, and if it needs adjusted, we're going to adjust it. If we adjusted the tooth, it's going to take it way before 5 degrees before. So it will probably run. Let's not mess with it. It's close enough to get going. But again, save yourself some headache. Something else to look at is the timing. Instead of fighting this thing and breaking up a sweat and getting pissed off at it, just check that. I'm good with this. It should run like that. So on to the next step. So we're on the home stretch now. I got to hook the wiring up for the ignition into this ignition coil, and well, I use a battery charger, which is on the other side. But these things are pretty simple to wire up. This is your igniter, which is your ignition, and all it is a set of points like a distributor would have. A set of points on the inside of the cylinder that open and close and make the spark. You have to have a coil to get good enough spark to run. And like I said, these things are pretty simple. This is your positive electrode. Find some place to hook my gator clip there. Maybe, how about there? That'll work. So you gotta have your positive to the coil. We'll go from the coil to the positive on the battery charger, and then this one here needs to ground, which I'll go to the ground on the other side and ground to the battery charger, and this thing will be hooked up and ready to run, with the exception of getting some gas in her. I hate these newfangled cans. Yeah, let's just spill gas everywhere, because that's safe. We'll turn the oiler on here so it oils the cylinder and suck some fuel up in it hopefully here. I don't think we got any fuel yet. Smell some stale gas. Like that, she's running. Well, let's get some glamour shots for you here. Well, I think I was a success, don't you? She runs nice. So my little work trip paid off. Who'd have thought? Yeah, nice little running engine. Something I didn't have in the collection, so hope you enjoyed it. It was one of my shorter videos, I'm sure. I haven't edited it yet, obviously, because I'm still filming it right now. But if you like this type of stuff, I have other videos where I completely tear down and rebuild engines. I've got more in the works, trust me. I've got a lot of projects. So, yeah, if you like it, go check out some other videos. Check out the Should Run with Gas podcast. It is a podcast me and a friend do. It's based around hit and miss engine hobby. So if you want to hear a couple guys BSing about that and have we interview a few people and just things you might find interesting, go check it out. It's called the Should Run with Gas podcast on YouTube and Spotify. At some point I'll put it on other podcasting sites, but I'm a little busy. So, again, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, it's going to be one of my shorter videos, I hope. But this is Bob Barker reminding you, have your pets spayed or neutered. Wait a minute, that's not what I say. Until next time, go out and get your hands dirty.